Michelle, Louisiana's abortion ban, it does include exceptions for the mother's life or if the fetus is non-viable. But the Louisiana woman we just heard from does not fall into either category. What does that tell you about the exceptions that often accompany abortion bans?
The first thing is that these are matters that are up to interpretation. So it was that the hospital interpreted the law to not apply to this case of acrania, just as you said, a fetus developing without a skull. Perhaps at some other hospital, they might have thought that it would fall in the exception. But the law is doing exactly as the anti-abortion lawmakers are intending, which is to make people afraid. It is to chill conduct. It is to make hospital staff, doctors, nurses, and others, the management of hospitals, nervous about losing licensure. It is about making people feel as if they will be criminally or civilly punished if they help a childbearing person, if they help a pregnant person.
Meantime, Florida, a 16-year-old girl who is pregnant. Apparently, she is nearing the deadline to receive an abortion before the state's 15-week ban. Florida and many other states require permission from parents to have an abortion. You have a judge this week ruling that the teen is not mature enough to decide whether or not to have an abortion. I mean, to me, this goes back to your fundamental argument, which is there is a lot that is still left here to interpretation.
That's absolutely right. I mean, what we see is basically a train wreck that is taking place with such grave inconsistencies between states. And the substance of that ruling, the suggestion that a 16-year-old is not mature enough to know that she's not ready or fit to be a parent, but somehow she is mature enough to be forced to bear a pregnancy and deliver a child and become a mother when she's still in high school, has no income, has no career-sustaining job, or any of the things that we know are necessary in order to become a parent who's able to provide the kind of life that we say is part of the American dream.
Michelle, I want to talk about Michigan because understandably, this keeps being framed as a victory for abortion rights, but it does seem like we're at the point where they're just playing defense, and defensive victories have to be understood as victories within the movement. But I want to be clear, what it means is we're at best keeping things status quo. Your sense of the political landscape right now?
Well, you know, as I've been calling this on your show, Alicia, this is the period of the new Jane Crow. And if we think about the period of Jim Crow, we know that for African Americans who were under siege in states like Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, the victory was to be able to survive a night when the mob or Klan came through. That's not living the American dream. That's not what people are supposed to expect who are citizens of this country. But that's how depraved and egregious these times are, that these limited victories are not really victories at all. They're basically being able to survive the night at a time in which that just shouldn't be what people expect in this country.
Michelle Goodwin, as always, thank you so much for walking us through all of this.